You are listening to the Cookbook Love podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 297.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. How is everybody doing today? As always, very excited to be here. We'd returned from a trip to West Lafayette, Indiana, by the time that this podcast comes out, where our youngest son graduated from college. And we are officially finished with the educational pursuits of our children, and they are all launched into their young adult lives. I could not be prouder of them, and it has been a joy to raise them, to be their mom, and to do all the things that we did and the things that I got to do with them from the time they were little until now. And I look forward to what the future holds. But what I want to say about all that is I decided to have a lot of fun, tried to enjoy myself as much as possible, get into whatever they were into, walk side by side with them through the ups and downs of elementary, middle school, high school, and college. And my career and my work as a cookbook writer, cookbook author, business owner, podcaster, food and nutrition writer has allowed me to do that. And I could not be more grateful. So if you are listening to this and you're carving out your own way as a freelance writer, cookbook writer, online course creator, podcaster, I hear you, I get you, and I think you should just keep going because it allows a lot of time freedom to do the things that you're going to want to do with your family. And for those of you that are here listening about cookbooks and discovering new cookbooks and listening to interviews with cookbook authors and are not at all in the stage of life where I am or never will be, I am so glad you're here. This podcast brings me a lot of joy, and we're rounding out our 200th episode, heading into the 300th episode early in June, and I'm just going to keep on going. I just call this my Small But Mighty podcast. You all are a great group of people. I've heard from many of you, and I'm so thrilled that you join me each week and that we can make a difference in the world by reading, writing, and collecting cookbooks. Okay, so today on the podcast, I have an interview with Georgie Hockett. Georgie is the marketing director at Flashpoint Books, and she joined Girl Friday Productions, which is the parent company of Flashpoint, in 2018 as a marketing professional with over 20 years of experience in media and magazines. At Flashpoint Books, Georgie's passion for helping authors achieve their unique vision of success makes her a client favorite, and her support of her talented marketing strategists makes her a beloved member of the Flashpoint team as well. Today on the podcast, Georgie and I talk all about the definition of hybrid and custom publishing, the ideal client for a hybrid published book, the mindset of a client for Flashpoint, and we dive into the services that hybrid publishers provide, as well as how to know if hybrid publishing is for you or not. This podcast is longer than some of the other podcasts, so break it up into a couple episodes if you need to. Georgie has a ton of advice for someone who is perhaps looking at hybrid or custom publishing, and she is very open about sharing what the experience of working with a hybrid or custom publisher would be like for a cookbook writer. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Georgie Hockett. Hi, Georgie. Welcome to the Cookbook Love podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm very excited you're here too. We're going to dive into a conversation today that is new for the podcast. I can't wait to talk about it. But before we do, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm again thrilled to be here because I love to talk about books, which is what I do, and cookbooks in particular. So I work for a company called Girl Friday Productions. So what that is a publishing services company, meaning that in the past we have helped people produce their books. In 2020, we did start our own imprint called Flashpoint. So that is our imprint that we publish. And we've been lucky enough to work with several cookbook authors and nutritionists, and it's been really fun. So we're distributed through Ingram, which is the world's largest book distributor. And we get books into all the places where your listeners get books, from local bookstores, independent bookstores to Walmart, Target, and beyond.
Yeah. So I've talked on the podcast before about traditional publishing a lot, the
Yeah.
advanced royalty driven model where, you know, you get an advance, you're paid royalties, and you write the manuscript. The publisher produces the book. And then I've talked more recently too about self-publishing, people who want to do true independent publishing, even through avenues like KDP. They maybe have a different audience, different set of goals. They learn how to publish their own books, they publish them, or they use someone to help them publish their book. But tell us about the kind of publishing that Flashpoint does, because I've used a couple words on the podcast before, maybe hybrid publishing. I've heard vanity publishing, custom publishing. Tell us where you and your Flashpoint Books falls in this spectrum of publishing.
Yes. So Flashpoint is a hybrid publisher. So at our company, that means that you have skin in the game and we have skin in the game. So it is a paid services model, meaning that your listeners, if they came to us, they would have to pay a fee up front. With that being said, and I'm going to share with you a great graphic that one of our people created. So you do have to start off with an investment, but in the long run, you make more money because right now our royalty split is, I believe, 70-30, meaning the author retains 70% and we make 30%. And that 30% is for people like myself, that I'm the marketing director for Flashpoint. It's for my time to promote the book. I go to New York twice a year, and then we meet virtually with the book reps, which are they serve the book buyers at Target and all those big places that, Williams Sonoma, Anthropology, cool places like that.
Yeah.
So that pays for that. We also have someone that on my team, Alyssa, and she manages like the warehousing and reprinting and stuff like that. So that's what that's paying for. But you will make more money in the long run because you will get the lion's share of the royalties. So that's how that works down. With that being said, we do have at Girl Friday. So Girl Friday is like the house, and Flashpoint is one of the rooms in the house. We also have what we call custom book publishing, which I think other people would say self-published. And we say custom because it's customized to that person. I also think there's kind of this weird, self-publishing is a dirty word sort of situation, which is absolutely not true, but I do recognize that some people think that.
Yeah.
So we have that solution, and that means that you're calling the shots. You say, I want my cover to look like this. Don't touch my book. I'm not going to accept your edits. I want it just like this. You get 100% of the royalties. You make 100% of the decisions. We're just there to assist you, like we assist other publishers. Like we have worked with Amazon, PRH, all the big people, and they say, do this book. And we say, you got it. And we do it. Then there's something kind of in the middle that's called GFB. This is relatively new in the way that you can say that GFB is your publisher, and that is true. Our logo would be on the side of your book. We do take a part of the royalties, but it's very, very much a partnership in the way that if we say we suggest this edit or we suggest this photo, then you can say yes or no. So really the difference between Flashpoint is the distribution that we can do. And the other ones, you do get online distribution and kind of a dotted line to getting into the physical stores, but that's going to take work from you, which we call being like an authorpreneur in the way that you're an author, but you're an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah. And I've talked before, if people have public speaking or a very well-known restaurant, bakery, winery, it's possible custom publishing package would be perfect for them because they have the distribution within their own business model to support the sale of the books. Whereas if it's someone maybe doesn't have that, they maybe have a social media presence, but they're not like physically with people. They have to get books out to them. the hybrid model and the distribution through all the places where people buy cookbooks, including places like Anthropology, gift shops, Costco, Walmart, those kinds of things. You talking to the sales reps for those people is really how those books get there. And that's why the 30% is there. It's to do things that we couldn't do it on our own if you weren't doing it for us.
No. And then you're also in our catalog, which you have a digital catalog and a printed catalog that we send to every bookstore nationwide. And you're in there for life. Like it's a marriage, like Flashpoint. Like I'm always talking about books. There's a term that's called, excuse me, front list and backlist. Backlist titles are just books that are older than 2 years old. I'm still marketing for those books.
Yeah.
So that doesn't end after the is out. So it's ongoing. It goes forever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why you're paying that service fee, which can be hefty. You know, it's not cheap. In fact, all of the publishing pathways at Girl Friday are going to require some kind of commitment, but I don't want to get ahead of it because I have solutions. I know you have a whole list of questions.
Yeah, that's okay.
We can, help people.
Yeah, I don't think that you want people to automatically shut this particular avenue down just because of that. I think that let's talk about who your ideal client might be. If someone has interest in doing a book or and the kind of mindset that you like to work with your authors, because if someone is listening to this and they feel like they hit these categories, they could always, I'm assuming, like find out like what the real costs are and what the long-term like 2-year plan might be and see what the pathway is for them specifically. So who is your ideal client? People that you really feel like fit the model perfectly for Flashpoint.
Yeah. Well, I have been so lucky to work with so many authors that I think just are amazing. And I'm not just saying that. I learned from all of them, and it's really been fun and exciting. The ideal client is someone that has that mindset of they're going to hustle. So they have to be a hustler. Very rarely in anything in life can you just do something once and you're going to be successful. A silly example I use is that you can't eat one blueberry and think you're going to lose 30 pounds. Like you have to healthy, you have to work out, you have to do all that stuff like that. So it's very hard to just produce one book and think, well, that's it. I did a book. And it's very sad. I have had authors that they're so focused on the developmental edit or developing the recipes or the content in the book. And then the book is publishing the next day and they'll call me as the marketing director and they're just like, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen? I'm like, nothing, because you did nothing. Like you have a beautiful book, but no one's searching for a book that they've never heard of by a person they've never met. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing that I'm sure that you might have talked about before is that like writing the cookbook or the book about nutrition is almost the easy part. It's the actual, like you have to go out and promote it. Now, I don't want to scare your listeners away with that because I also say if you did one thing a week, you'd be ahead of the game. So at Girl Friday or Flashpoint, when I work with people and my marketing team works with you, we give you a comprehensive set of services that's included with your publishing package. First of all, and I know that it's kind of like the wedding industry. You don't know until you're actually getting married, like what it's about. So most people don't know what they're getting into when they're publishing books. So I can tell you that in the publishing industry, in the self-publishing options that are out there, and also big houses, because we've had both. Like one of my authors was published by a known publishing house. And she said she never knew what was going on. They never communicated with her, didn't send royalty reports, anything like that. So when you sign on at Flashpoint, one of my team or myself is assigned to you, and I'm with you the whole way. I meet with you once a month, at least. It's more than that. When anyone has a question, almost like a book counselor in the way that I can tell you what's going on and what the reaction is from the reps and that sort of thing. Like I told you before when we were chatting before we started the podcast, was that I'm a self-published author myself. I just called a 1-800 number and no one knew who I was. And they'd be like, what's your name again? These people, what's great about Girl Friday and Flashpoint is that one of my authors just invited me to her wedding. I've gone and stayed with authors at their houses, which sounds a little weird. But
it's relationship based.
It's relationship based. And you think that shouldn't matter, just like it shouldn't matter that you actually like your doctor, but it kind of helps when you do.
Yeah.
Because
totally. I mean, if you like the authors and you like what they're writing about, you want to talk about their book. It's the same for anything. If I like my doctor and I get my questions answered and I love our relationship, I'm going to tell people to go to that doctor.
Yeah. You're like, my doctor's great. Like, they're not looking at the watch. They're, talking
Exactly.
yeah. So it's just like that. So I feel very fortunate. So you were asking me about the ideal client, someone that hustles, someone that wants a relationship. And we joke it is like a marriage, but it kind of is, because I need you to do stuff and then I'll do stuff. And yeah, so that's pretty much the ideal author. I would love to have, no matter which route they go with us, either custom, GFB, or Flashpoint. It is nice when they listen to us. I totally respect, someone may say that their daughter is a great artist and they're going to design the cover. At Flashpoint, all of the cover design is actually based on research that my team does. So even though I'm not a graphic designer, we do all this research and we say, readers that like books like yours like books that look like this. And the whole way that I equate this is that, have you ever been in a bookstore and you see a book cover and maybe you can't even read the cover at this point, you see it across the room, you're like, oh, that looks like something I would be interested in. So it's just that, it's the whole psychology of things. We don't want book covers to look trendy, but we do want them to look intelligent and beautiful and smart and have a lot of appeal, because your book cover is the number one marketing piece that you have.
Yeah.
So you need to have it look as amazing. And I would say cookbooks especially so. 100%.
Yeah. So if someone is listening and they feel like they've got the hustle, they've got the idea, maybe they have social media following, maybe they're interested in this. Do you take ideas from people through proposal, through query, or through personal like conversations on Zoom or consultations? How do you actually connect with your authors?
How do we find them? Yeah. So it's kind of everything that you just said. So we have work with agents. So we might have a literary agent that says, oh, this author was picked up by someone, but then dropped, or the book never got made, or maybe the author didn't agree with the creative, direction that the publisher was saying. So we get a lot of that. We do get people that reach out to us through our email address, which is just hello@Girl Friday Productions. So we get a lot of that. We have a nice form on there that kind of guides people, like, how long is your book? What's your definition of success? So people do that. We referrals. You mentioned that you worked with the wonderful Andrea Burnett, PR. We partnered with her for quite a long time, and she would refer authors to us. So what I found, if you're just, Girl Friday or Flashpoint, a good person, a good company, it's not really competition, it's community. So we've had a lot of people that just say, I don't think it's a good fit for us, but it might be good for you, or I just don't have time. So, and that's great. We love that.
And if you have submissions or ideas that are passed maybe to you and people are interested in writing a book, does Flashpoint actually vet the books, or would they say they would do anything, or is the custom publishing side more the one where they would do anything?
Yeah, I mean, there is a vetting process.
Because I think vetting actually helps raise the bar for everybody that is involved in the book publishing space for you. You would want to have the best books, and you want to create the best books so that you attract the best books, right? Best people that are doing them.
Yeah, for sure. And we want to be proud of it. I mean, this goes without saying, obviously, as a female-owned company, we tend to not publish books that are discriminatory, that have inflammatory language, that are negative to groups of people,
women.
Marginalized. We're not probably going to work with you.
Right.
And there's publishers that will, and that's fine. And that's probably a better fit down the road anyway. So we do have a vetting process though. Yes. And even for our custom one, which people would call self-published, we again would probably not publish something that's damaging to the world as we know it.
Yes, that makes sense. No, I completely understand that. Let's talk a little bit more about the hustle and what you love in someone you just signed, like the kinds of things that you think really make a difference when it comes to not just writing the book, but the actual marketing and promotion of the book, the things that you see really working for cookbook authors.
Yeah. Well, and we've been lucky to have some wonderful titles with us. The Little Luna books, So Easy, So Yummy.
Yeah, and I did, just so you all know, she was on the show, episode 280. If you go back and listen to that, Little Luna, Kristen Merkley, her book was published by Flashpoint. So tell us about Kristen and the kinds of things that really made the hustle factor for her a really easy thing for her to do.
Yeah, well, she was different in the way that she had a tremendous social media following. Same with Megan Hansen, who is a registered dietitian, and her handle is Megan the Dietitian. If anyone wants to start following her, she's amazing in the way that she has a very straightforward approach. And she's just really engaging and just stuff that makes a lot of sense. So what these authors did, I know that with Megan, especially, she did. So you're asking me what the hustle is, and what that is to think out of the box. And as the marketing director or anyone that's in marketing, people come to me and they say, what's the one thing? Tell me the one thing that I can do to make my book successful. And again, we go back to that blueberry that I was talking about.
Right.
It's not the blueberry. And if there was one thing, I would tell you right now in this podcast, and then I would be rich and I wouldn't need to have a daily job and that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's not one thing, it's all the things. And it's all the things different for everybody. So like Megan was really good online. So she created video content every day. Now, that's a lot, and not everyone is going to be all excited about that. So if you're not good at that, don't do that. If you're a better blogger, maybe you should do that.
Yeah.
If you're a better speaker, then maybe you should do that. So it's really looking at your strengths. And I would say doing that, because people say, oh, I need to blog, right? I'm going to start blogging. And I say, do you want to blog? And they say no. And I say, then no. Don't do that, because now your blog is going to look stagnant and they're going to have some old post from 2021 and then you don't look active, engaged, so no, then don't blog. So it's different for everybody. But for cookbooks, especially, and nutrition, I think it's content. And I haven't had a lot of authors that are really kind of safeguarding their content. And you really can't. I have had authors say, well, I don't want to release like a sample chapter because someone's going to steal it, right? Well, I would ask you if anyone's ever been to Costco. I remember going to Costco and having, if they had a sample, I would eat the sample. I'm like, yes, that's delicious. Then you buy the box of wontons or whatever it is. So actually the sample is helping me make the purchase. And then if you gave me a little tidbit, like in Kristen's book, she had a great little tidbit that I'd love to tell you about that really I never even thought of it. It was so basic.
Yeah.
Was that she makes chocolate chip cookies and she takes them out of the oven and then she kind of sticks in a few chocolate chips while the things are still hot and they cool. I'd never heard that before. And just from that one chocolate chip tip was I tell everybody about that. And people were like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah. And then she's got a white sheet cake recipe in there that you'd think, I know how to make a sheet cake, but she's got some good stuff in there.
So good. Yeah.
You have to be willing to kind of not hold it so close to the chest. And even when people say to me, well, okay, I'll blog and I'll do that. But I have to come up with new stuff. I say, no, use your book as the source for your content and say like that chocolate chip tip, or maybe you should leave the butter out for a certain amount of time. Like those things, like just use your book as the content source and people will still buy it. I mean, sure, there might be some people that say, oh, I can just put together, like, I think a lot of her recipes are on her website. So do you need to buy the book? Maybe no. But do you want to have that one resource and it's all written down and it's beautiful and the beautiful index, which we'll talk about later?
Yeah.
Then, I think that it's just someone that knowing your strengths, I think partnering also, again, like I was saying about even companies like ours, community, not competition. If you are a cookbook chef and maybe you make cupcakes and someone else makes cupcakes, but maybe they're different. Maybe they're influenced by that person's heritage or something. Maybe you could still partner at an event, a tasting event. You could interview each other. You could
have a whole cupcake convention. I mean, there's so much about cupcakes to talk about.
Oh yeah. And just because someone makes a good cupcake doesn't mean that I
100%. Right. Everybody's got their own style. They got their own way of doing it, their own way of decorating it. Now I saw like the little silicone cups you can bake in instead of paper. People do it in parchment paper. I mean, it just goes on and on. The pans and the styles and the techniques and
oh yeah. Or how they mix things. And that's another thing that I got from, I actually don't think it was Kristen's book. It was someone else, that it was like, beat the eggs with the butter. Like I never knew that. I mean, I'm not a great cook, but I just never knew that that was a thing. And so now I
Well,
do
but
it.
her book allowed you to like these little like mind opening techniques that just like really were life changing with chocolate chip cookies, beating
Yes.
eggs, making a sheet cake. The thing about it is, Georgie, I think that people are afraid to let go of the content. There's some kind of fear in there that,
Yes. Yes.
first of all, we don't all know it all. That's the first thing. Even if I was the most expert cupcake baker, there's still plenty for me to learn about cupcakes. And if you're a cupcake baker, I could probably learn from you and you could learn from me. Um,
Oh, I agree.
and so I
100%.
think that's the thing about what you mentioned, community over competition, is that we all can learn from each other. And
Oh,
I think we can all just relax. There's really like not anything brand new in food. There might be new equipment, new things coming out that you want to like, but we can learn from other people. And that's the best part about talking to people. And one of the things I love about even having this podcast is getting to talk to people like you. It's we learn this way. And I'm happy to share it with all the people who get to learn also. And I think that it just like this whole way of operating in the online space that we couldn't necessarily have done 25 or 30 years ago.
oh no. And to bring it bring it back to what I do, which is publishing, absolutely. And it's you would think, oh, I need to get an agent. I need to write query letters. I need to get an agent. And then I get a publisher and that sort of thing. Again, it's redefining success.
Yes.
So everybody wants book sales. Everyone wants that. That's like standard. That's 101. But success can be so many different things. Um, we worked with a client, not a cookbook, but it was called Picturing Joy by George
Hmm.
Lang. And it was basically that. And he's so joyous. And it was just about how he captured joy in photography. What that led to, which is another interesting thing for your listener demographic here, is that he was already, he's very successful and very established, but he got reached out to by Jenny's, which is an ice
Oh,
cream chain.
yes, yes.
We don't have that up here in Seattle, but
Yeah, they
Jenny's reached.
started in Columbus, which is not too far from here in Cincinnati, and I've seen them in Chicago. I
Yeah,
think she has since maybe sold some of the company. I don't know if she has a few stores of her own still, but yeah, I mean, terrific ice cream, amazing flavors, researched because she was all about how the fat carries the flavor. I mean, she was like, deep
yeah.
into the research of that. It's just amazing.
Well, she saw George's book. I don't know where. Saw it. They reached out to George and said, "We just love your joyous,
Yeah.
outlook on life." They sell his book in their store,
Isn't
and
that
then they
amazing?
hired him. He's a photographer, so he came and shot like the people at Jenny's corporate and stuff like that. And they had some event that I thought was really cool. It was like, come in, you get a free cone if you buy George's book or something like that.
Oh,
So again, just that partnership.
yes.
Um, and the possibility, and that's
Yes.
another thing. There's another little catchphrase for you, like the possibility and partnership. And yeah, I think that with a good cookbook, there's so many different ways that you could go. You could get sponsorship deals, and that's another thing I'd love to talk to you about and your audience is that yes, there's book sales,
Hmm.
but I also had my own business before I started my career at Girl Friday, and if you're kind of banking on one thing, you really shouldn't, here's my dog getting into it. You should really think of different streams of revenue. So the book, yes, but also speaking gigs, merchandising, partnerships. It's all kind of this web that you can have. And from a cookbook, just like Kristen, we were
Yeah.
talking about her. Got the blog, she does appearances, she's done partnerships. I would not be surprised if one day she had her own line of bakeware, and that's
Yeah.
very possible for her. So just because of her like family focus and
Yeah.
all that. So I think a successful book, and even George, the book has it sold, yes, but that partnership that he had with Jenny's, and then up here we have Stanley and Seattle Stanley cups,
Yeah.
those
Oh, yeah. There's all the rage.
those popular tumblers.
Target's got new colors I hear coming
Yeah,
up for the spring. Right.
at the new cups. But they hired him again because of his Joy platform, and he got paid to go up there and shoot at the
Oh,
company,
wow.
and he got paid like, I mean, I guess I won't disclose it, but it was
That's
pretty
good. I
nice.
mean, no, and it's all because he had the book.
Yes.
He partnered with different people. People reached out, people see him, people get to know him, and then these different connections just develop.
Well, and that's like, we have certain people at my company that say like your book is your business card, which I think is something very true, that you could say, look what I've done, and I can also do this, this, and this. So book
Yeah.
sales is just one
Right.
avenue of success, at least for me. And that's something that I try to evangelize when people come to me, is that I want you to have book sales too. I want it to be a number one bestseller too. But what can be done right now?
Yes.
So it's easier to be an Amazon, like Little Luna was number one in I think it was muffins and scones
Yes.
on Amazon, which we all kind of had a laugh. But I was like, take it. I'll take it, man. And you know what you do? You take that and you just roll it like a big snowball. So she was number one in muffins and
Yep.
scones. And then I took, said I didn't work with her on that book. It was someone on my team. But then you just roll that into the next thing. So maybe she'll get a speaking gig because she was a number one bestseller. And then that gets her even more and more and more. You just build like layers on a cake.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
keep,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, and her book and her interview is really neat to listen to, because she studied a lot of cookbooks, and she
Mhm.
decided the features she wanted in her cookbook, and you all were able to help her bring those features to life. The unique index, actually, there's two different kinds of indexes: the QR codes and the videos that are placed by every specific recipe has a QR code, I believe. And she was
Yeah.
so proud of the book because she got to envision what she wanted, and Flashpoint helped her make the dream of the book she wanted a reality.
Well, and that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because for your people, again, that may not know because they haven't had a book published, a traditional publisher may say, no, thanks, that's too much work. We're not going to create those QR codes and put them on there. We're not going to do the two different kinds of indexes, because they want, maybe when they're printing it, they only want a certain kind of signature, and that means the amount of pages that are
Yeah.
bundled in the book.
Yeah.
So they want to keep it, under this many signatures, or they want the page count to be this. So at Flashpoint, it is hybrid publishing in the way that it's all the perks of traditional, meaning the distribution, but it's the partnership that we listen to you, and work with you. And so, yes, that was her idea. I've never seen that before. I've never seen an index like that, and I've never seen the QR codes before.
Yeah, I was just looking at
So,
the index again. I think there's actually, so they have the recipes by hold on a minute, like a tag index. So
yes.
prepped in 5 minutes, quick and easy, on the table in 20, freezer friendly, feed a crowd, make ahead, slow cooker, dairy free, gluten free. So every recipe is listed, and it tells you which tags. So you can just go straight down the list. If you want the prepped in 5 recipes, that you can find them really fast. And then the next index is by category, but there's a thumbnail photo of every recipe. So it like has the category of breads and muffins, and everything from almond poppy seed bread to garlic knots has its own little thumbnail photo.
Well, and for visual learners,
Yes,
like,
100%.
yeah,
Great.
you're just like, oh, I know it was on a red tablecloth, or, something
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Yeah. No, it's
and
great.
yeah, I mean, we've done other gorgeous books like Shea Wickie's book, which we were talking about earlier. That's a great one because it's so inclusive.
Mhm.
So you didn't ask me this question, but I imagine a cookbook authors might think, what's unique about me and what makes me different? I think that, like for Shay, it was bringing everyone to the table. So it was, someone's a vegan, someone's got a, gluten allergy, something like that. And I know when I have people over, in fact, I actually stopped making dinner for people because I was like, I can't deal with it. Like someone's on Weight Watchers and someone who doesn't
Until
eat
you got
meat.
Shay's book, right?
Yeah. And then, yeah, well, absolutely. And Emily, who's our publishing director, we were meeting with Shay the other day, and Emily, as we were wrapping it up, she said, oh, Shay, I have to tell you, I have book club tonight, and I'm making some of your recipes because I got like a vegan. I got like all this kind of, and
Yes,
Shay was laughing. But it's so true.
it
And
is
it just,
true. And
and then I think also the person that has the food allergies, they always feel weird. I know that I'm not a big meat eater. And
yeah,
so like I'm always like, I'm fine, don't worry about me. And people are like, well, what should I make you? And I'm like, it's fine. Like you're kind of embarrassed about
it
your
is. And I think it puts the pressure on the person who's the guest to like try to decide, oh, I'll just have a cheese stick. I don't know. I'm just making that up. It's like, I think that if we're going to be hospitable and we're going to invite people into our home, I think the responsibility is on the person that's hosting the meal to like do it. And Shay's book, which is called Kitchen Commune, episode 285, also published by Flashpoint, is an inclusive cookbook because she covers allergen friendly, gluten-free, paleo, vegan, and more. And she'll tell you in all the recipes who it's good for. But like this rotisserie chicken soup, I bet that just based on the way it's cooked, it could probably be served to anybody.
Yeah.
If you eat meat. Right.
Yeah. A huge chicken. Right.
Yeah.
And then we have a book that's coming out. So a little sneak peek of what's coming out in the fall of 2024 this year. Jason Raffin, which is a pretty well-known chef that he was in San Francisco. He relocated to Hawaii, but his book and what got them so excited when I was in New York presenting it, it's called Keto Like a Chef. Usually keto books, if you go to your bookstore, it's just like the slabs of meat and it's like, all this kind of caveman stuff. But his book is very chic. If you look at the photography, it's very fancy. So it's not vegan in the way that it's just like bacon with a meatloaf with the side of ham. It's gorgeous. So I do think that everyone does have their unique way of doing something. But even at Girl Friday and Flashpoint, we do help authors with ideation and book coaching services. So really, soup to nuts, we're there to help you.
Yeah. And I think for someone like you, who, if someone is really getting deep into the idea and they're pretty close, to be able to talk to someone like you that has experience not only with the kinds of books that you've done and what you could do for them, but what the market will bear and what the market's interested in. That's really a nice feature of being able to do that. And I think the relationship is huge. Being able to talk to someone that cares about the author, cares about the book they're producing, and cares about, the success that they want as the author, and they're there to help them do that is, it's huge, because that means everything to someone who's really literally spending their days writing and cooking to create a book that hopefully will help people. I always say, have a good time, maybe heal, have some fun in the kitchen, some things that cookbooks really have the capacity to do.
Yeah. And we love doing cookbooks because it just combines all of it.
Yeah.
From nerdy stuff that we love in publishing, paper quality, spot gloss, stuff like that, different binding options, to exactly that. And our founders, Ingrid and Lamb, they're both amazing cooks. I would probably say, really, even especially Lamb, I'll give her a little shout out, like just an amazing cook. So it's really kind of in our DNA with the company. We do all kinds of books, but yeah, Lamb's an amazing. She made me candied jalapenos once and delivered it.
Oh my gosh, I bet they were so good.
Oh my God, I can't even really get into it. It was so good.
I can't even describe it. It's like a religious experience.
It really is.
It is.
Really,
yeah.
I love them. And I love jalapenos, but those candied, I mean, they were, good.
Yeah. Food's amazing. And I tell people that listen to the podcast and that I work with, they talk about the three things we all want to have balance in our life, with our relationships with people, our health, and our, money's an important thing, our financial welfare. And cookbooks, I think, have the capacity as the one book that can really, truly, in some way, affect all three of those things. Feeding people, taking care of ourselves, feeding our own body. And even if you have to, if you want to save money, or you want to budget money, or if you want to be aware of what you're spending on food, a cookbook can touch all of those. And I love also what you said, and I think this is important for cookbook authors to remember. Cookbooks can have a long shelf life because people develop a relationship with them. It's not the same as a book. Like if you read a novel, I might keep a novel I really liked, and sometimes I'll dip back into it. But a cookbook that I like, I'll use over and over and over again. Or the recipes, I'll learn them, and I'll say, oh, I got that from so-and-so's cookbook or from this cookbook. I have a pressure cooker cookbook for my pressure cooker, which is one of my favorite things to use. And Lorna Sass wrote it. It's probably 25 years old. It lives in my kitchen, and I love that book.
Oh, shoot. I totally support that. I think it's true. You keep going back.
It's not linear. It's like you really do have a relationship with the book.
Well, and I would dare say that the cookbook authors that we worked with and future ones, that it's really constant content in the way that, like, you're exactly right. If you write a story, here's the story, blah, 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 whatever it is, romance, mystery, whatever, and then it's over.
Yeah.
But with the cookbook, I mean, you could have a very active and engaged social media following. You could have a website. We also do website design,
Hmm.
but you can certainly do it yourself. If you update, you keep going back. And then
Yeah.
also you have a chance that your personality can get into that. A lot of times with a fiction writer, you're focused on the story. Of course, people have a different tone of voice. But for like all of the authors that we've talked about, Shay, Jason coming up as well, they're very strong personalities. And I mean, Jason has a ton of videos too. So
Yeah.
you would just go back and look at what he has to say and what's up, and what's in season, and what ingredients can you use right now this time of year. I can't really use X, so I'm going to try Y.
Hmm.
So I think it's it's a very exciting, good time to be a
Yeah,
cookbook author.
it is, and it's it is dynamic. It's not static. It's always, things are changing, but some things are always the same, and that actually is a nice thing as well. So, two beautiful books, and quite frankly, I think I told you this before we started recording. When I saw Shay's with Flashpoint, I think I did
Yeah,
Kristen first and then Shay. I'm like, okay, I've got to find out like about Flashpoint, and then Andrea Burden came on. She sends me people to talk to on the show, and I said, "Andrea, do you know anybody at Flashpoint?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah." So then she, like, connected me with you. And, I just think it's great that we had a chance on the podcast for everyone to hear about this particular avenue of publishing. It's
well,
a
and there's
wonderful service, and if anybody wants to reach out to you, I'm sure that you mentioned your email. What other kinds of ways can connect with you all online?
Yeah, they can go to, well, I always encourage people, kind of a simple voyeuristic way to check us out is just to follow us on social media. So there is a Girl Friday Productions, Instagram, Facebook. There's also a Flashpoint Books, Instagram and Facebook. There's also flashpointbooks.com that you can see the books that we've done on there. And then there's also girlfridayproductions.com. And what I think is really exciting that's different about what we do is that there's no wrong way, and there's different ways that you can do it. And so if you want to be a custom author, you want to go it alone, and even going it alone, you're not alone because I'm there with you, but you want to make all your own choices and stuff like that, that's fine. If you want a little help, there's GFB. And if you want that direct line to possibly being carried in stores and whatnot, that's Flashpoint Books. And
Yeah.
there's not one of those platforms is better than the other. There's actually pros and cons to both of them. So like we were saying before we started, with Flashpoint, we do a lot of offset printing, which is exciting, but now you have 5,000 books sitting in a warehouse.
Yeah.
And so there's that pressure to move them. And, that's great. And it's also maybe a little bit scary. And so maybe you want to go custom because then it's primarily online, but you have that dotted line to be carried traditionally in traditional bookstores, but
Yeah.
you do have to hustle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, before getting into this long thing, I would just encourage people to reach out to us through either one of those websites. And like I mentioned, the email was hello@girlfridayproductions.com. One of our wonderful people that answer that email address, either Karen or Christina, will get back to you. Both of these ladies have worked at Chronicle Books, Amazon Books. We all have had traditional publishing experience, or myself, I come from media background, so I worked
Mhm.
in magazines and stuff like that. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
And I know it's stressful, and it is, it's an investment. And this is something we didn't really get into, but perhaps we could talk about later at another time. But even if you think, gosh, there's no way I can afford this, there actually are some really exciting avenues. And we have a partnership with Kickstarter, and I can think of at least 4 of our authors that have had their Kickstarter campaigns fully funded. So what that means is they paid $0 and 0 cents and had their books produced with us. And as someone that donates to their Kickstarter, there's usually different levels of incentives.
Yeah.
So typically they get a book, right? So what that does is not only when the book comes out and they fulfill their promises to give everyone a book, it boosts you up in the rankings. So what you got is your book fully paid for, and now you have a best-selling book on Amazon. So I mean,
would
there's
love
definitely
to have a show talking about crowdfunding and crowdsourcing funds to have a book hybrid published, and the ways and that people can kind of bend their mind a little bit, like thinking about that.
yeah. I mean, it's not easy. You have to
No. Well,
produce.
that's
You
right. I
get
mean, but my father always said anything that's really worth doing is probably not easy. It takes
yeah,
commitment and it takes consistency, I think, are the two big traits I always think of when I think of people who want to write and publish and market and sell books. Um,
yeah.
Committed to the process, consistent in what they do, and try to have fun along the way. And
Well, absolutely. I
yeah,
totally agree.
yeah. And,
And
then,
it's
yeah, the Kickstarter crowdfunding, then that's just, probably the tip of the iceberg in terms of creative ways that you could raise money to invest in a hybrid publishing project.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about I do have a question about regional topics, regional food topics, and like restaurant or bakery books. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Well, we have worked with those. So we have a book coming out in the fall that's called the Crab Pot Cookbook. The Crab Pot is a big restaurant here in Seattle, down on our pier. They also have one in California. So that is something that we're producing. That's not really by one person, it's by that whole company. Obviously, a natural fit would be that it's going to be sold at the restaurants in
Right.
Seattle. They have an amazing amount of tourism there. So it's going to be sold through there. But that whole pier area in Seattle, they have a partnership. So we have the Great Wheel. Um, down there, and so they also have a gift shop there. So it's really a great opportunity to have that book in different places that are really associated with Seattle. We also have like a Fireworks, that's the name of a store, and it's in the airport, and I've seen it in a couple different things. So that's another thing that we can get. I have one of my authors that's going to be in the airport bookstore, which is pretty exciting because some people define that as success. They're like, I just want to be in the airport
No, and
bookstore.
I
That's
mean, my first book that I wrote was a seasonal. It's a Kentucky title, and it was published by a University Press in Kentucky, and they were able to get it in the bookstore, like Cincinnati Airport's in Northern Kentucky. And I'm like, my friends were always like, "Hey, I'm going to the airport. Here's your book." I mean, it's amazing. It is truly amazing, right, to see it in the airport.
It's so funny that people love that.
Yeah,
People ask me the same questions, like, not so much for cookbooks, but like, how do I get a Netflix deal? How do I get at the airport? How do I become a New York Times bestseller list? Those are probably the three questions that I
airport, Netflix, and New York Times bestseller. And what about
yeah.
regional titles then outside of restaurants? Like a book about Kentucky, or maybe I've seen books about the Midwest. I have talked to authors, books from Vermont. They're very regionally focused.
Yes. Which obviously the quick answer is like just what I said, like that book will probably do quite well in Seattle. But the reps, when we presented that one, we kind of had this tagline. It's like boat to table.
Yeah,
And they were like, and so they love that. And so places where
boats.
where ferries aren't common,
Yeah,
they were thinking, oh my God, people would love this in the Midwest, or they would love it on the East Coast or something like that. So, and even if you've traveled to Seattle, or even if you haven't, there's not a lot of books about just cooking crab. So again, it's like finding your niche and really kind of going with it.
yeah.
So I think expect for that book when it does come out, which again, it won't be until the fall, that obviously regionally we want to see that book perform well. But I
Mhm.
do think that it will have national pull with our whole tagline of from boat to table, because everyone's so familiar with like from farm to table sort
Yeah,
of
no,
thing.
that's great. No, that's
So
yeah. So I
there,
think my takeaway from this then is if someone is listening and they have a regional title, restaurant book, bakery book, this avenue of publishing is still open to them from the custom side or the hybrid side. It just depends, I think, on what their goals are and like where they maybe would want to, the kind of distribution that they maybe already have. And just talking to you guys, I guess, and seeing what the options might be.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Vermont books that I've talked to, the beautiful books, and the one that sticks out in my mind, They talk about having not 6 seasons. Yeah, 6 seasons in Vermont. All 4 of our normal seasons. And then they have stick season, which is like, it's not quite winter, but there's no leaves on the trees and all the tourists are gone. This is like the time that Vermont really enjoys, I think. And then
Wow.
mud season, which is like after the winter thaw, but before everything starts to bloom. It just must be like a muddy mess. I think the maple syrup trees are starting to run. There's a lot of
I've
mud on
never-
the ground. And I just was like, that is fascinating to hear that in a state that's in the United States, that culture, it's just so different when they talk about seasons. And those 2 seasons are really like for the people of Vermont, mud season and stick season.
See, I would buy the book just because I've never even.
I know.
That's
It's just
so
amazing.
cool.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. Stick season. Maybe not
Yes.
so much, but I do love it.
But what I think stick season is actually kind of a shoulder season. Like everybody's like breathing a sigh of relief if they've owned an inn or a restaurant, and they're kind of all still hanging out together. No one's quite gotten closed up shop for the winter, but whew, we made it through another leaf. I guess everybody goes to Vermont like to look at leaves, and skiing is coming. I guess skiing is a big deal in the winter, but they call it stick season.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
I love it.
I
There's
do
so
too.
many new things. And I
Yeah.
love hearing that sort of thing.
It is really neat. And I don't remember what episode she was on, but anyway, search for Cookbook Love podcast in Vermont. I'm sure you'll be able to find it if they're interested. All right. Well, my last question I love to ask people is tell us about, if you have a favorite cookbook, what that is and why it's your favorite. This is a hard one.
Well, it is hard because again, I'm one of those people that probably isn't a great cook, but I love to collect cookbooks. It's kind of like, if you go shopping, you're like, oh, I'm going to buy this completely sequin gown. I have no idea where I'm going to wear it, but I can imagine I'd wear it. It's kind of like that. I would probably say, and I probably am a little biased, it would be the Little Luna book.
Yeah.
And just for the reasons that I kind of alluded to previously, which is that it just, at first glance, you do think, oh, I know how to make chocolate chip cookies. I know how to make a sheet cake. I know how to, do all this stuff like that. But there was just a tip in there that I'd never heard of. So I love stuff like that you do every day. And you hear like, not that you're doing it wrong, but here's a way that it can be done better. So I love the book for that. I love the visual index. I do also find that I use the QR codes that link to the videos. So that's, kind of like if you're like, what does she mean? Fold in the cheese, which that's kind of a Schitt's Creek reference right there. But yeah, fold in the cheese. What are you talking about? That you can watch a video and you say, oh, I get it. Okay. So that probably is my favorite book just because it takes everyday things and gives you some nice tips about it. But I am very excited about Keto Like a Chef by Jason Raffin, just because in the past, keto has meant very meat heavy, and he's not having that. So, but I do think that Little Luna is probably my favorite because the revolutionary things. And then another thing that we didn't even mention is at the front of that book, it's really great. She just has menus like Christmas Day, here you go. Like, it's just like, you don't have to put it together. It's like, use this, use this, use this. And it's like one main dish, 2 side dishes, and a dessert and a drink, like a cool custom cocktail or something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. It says like Valentine's, pick one main dish, pick 2 sides, pick one dessert, pick one drink, and then the to-do list. Day before, morning of, 4 hours before, 1 hour before. And she gives you some choices to actually pick. It's very nice to do a menu that way. Offers a little more flexibility than just having a straight menu.
Well, absolutely. And, when you're doing it yourself, like I was like, oh, this sounds good. This sounds good. And then you have like 2 potato dishes. And I think, well, I did.
Why I picked wrong. Something's wrong with this menu. I got 2 potato dishes. All right. So I'll link to that in the show notes. And I'll also link to the interview that we did with Shay, which is your other author that we have had on here that has done, so people can see 2 books here that were done by Flashpoint.
And they're very different. I think Shay's feels very elegant, but accessible.
Oh, totally.
And then, Little Luna she has all her children on the cover, so it's much more family friendly.
And I think if you have some health challenges or you're feeding people that have some health challenges, I don't know if that's really the right word, but Shay's book is great because she has a whole section, a little essay called like "Stop Apologizing." Like, let's just cook and stop apologizing about it, and cooking for your future self, which is really good. So it's more than just recipes. There's a lot of things that she obviously believes to be true, things that she thinks are like food is medicine, things that she wants her readers to know she believes in, and that she maybe thinks you might share in some of these thoughts. And I love all the stuff that she inserted that's like that also.
Well, and just such a nice person.
Yep.
Just
It
good.
comes through in the book, it really does. They were both a joy to talk to. I'm not lying at all. I just thought they were great. I actually, if you were to look, I'm about to embark on my 300th episode. You talk about
Wow.
consistency and commitment. I'm just like, every week I'm gonna do an episode. So if I looked back over the list of everybody I've talked to, I mean, I could probably say great things about almost all of them.
Well, I mean, is it because of the food, do you think? I'm trying to think if I've had like a non-pleasant cookbook author and because they just see joy.
Yeah.
They just see joy in the food.
Well,
So
and
I've
I
never,
think also if you like to the kitchen is the place you enjoy. You maybe enjoy eating to a certain extent. You like the
yeah,
design elements of putting a cookbook together, the possibilities for marketing it, and you're meeting someone who shares that same enthusiasm. It's hard not to have some kind of like, connection just based on that.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yep. Well, I am so thrilled you came on the show. I will take you up on your offer sometime to do the Kickstarter episode or the crowdfunding episode.
Yeah, because that's a whole thing. And
It is a whole thing. And I think that
I,
that could be something on its own that would be very welcoming to our audience, especially if people are like, I would love to do this, but I've really got to think about how to get the funds together for it.
well, and that's exactly right. Because we're talking about cookbooks and they're fun and they're gorgeous and they're exciting, but there is,
There is
the thing that,
production expense. Yeah.
yeah, and no one wants to talk about that. It's kind of taboo.
Yeah.
And it's not cheap. It's not cheap. I mean, you probably could find a cheap one, but it's an investment. But I wouldn't let the investment be the roadblock, especially if you're so talented and you have something new to, offer the world.
Right.
So I never, this is maybe a flaw in myself. I'm going to say it's not a flaw, is that I actually never really say no. I think how can we do it? How can we make this happen? Like, that's
Yeah.
how I work with my clients too. Like, you know, can I get a Netflix deal? Well, I mean, we do have connections at Girl Friday and Flashpoint to, producers that do that sort of thing. But I'd like to get down to the root of it. Like, what are you really talking about? And we did
Right.
touch on that.
Yeah.
But as that whole separate how to fund your cookbook, because it's very daunting.
Mhm.
You don't need to be a millionaire and you
Mhm.
don't you just have to be enterprising and you have to have that hustle that we
Well, and I
talked
think
about.
it's like investing in the development of a product for your business.
It's exactly right. And what's a really cool, this will be a little teaser to that future thing, is that when you ask for help and you invite people on your journey, they're part of it and they want to help you. And so then now it's not just you alone and working on this cookbook in the kitchen or writing it behind your computer. It's like now all of a sudden you have all these people that are supporting you like a little wave.
All this
And they
energy
want
like going into it. And you all want it to succeed because you want your business to succeed. You want Girl Friday and Flashpoint to put out beautiful books.
Well, and that's also a thing that I always say to my clients, and a part of marketing, which is kind of uncomfortable, is sales.
Yeah.
But I'm actually not a salesperson, and I don't want to make anyone unhappy. I mean, I want people to say, "Gosh, I loved my experience at Flashpoint. It was so fun," and that they got, and never want it to seem like work. And I've been lucky enough that at the end, when we were like closing out clients, and you're like, "Well, this is our last meeting,"
Yeah.
and this is
It's kind of
people are
sad.
kind of sad. They're like, "Well, I'm supposed to talking to you," and I'm like, "I know it is sad, but
It is
that's when you
sad. Right.
those relationships where, and so much of life is like this now that you just meet people via Zoom. And when you meet them in real life, it's
Yeah.
so amazing. You're like, you're so tall.
I
You're
know. I
so
didn't expect you to be that tall.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's so great to have that. And I really do think that, like the doctor thing, it shouldn't matter, but it kind of does.
Yes.
And Yeah, we love cookbooks. And yeah, I would welcome also, anyone can ask me any questions too.
Okay.
So you can reach out and
And I'll put all those in the show notes, the email and the social media and places that people can get in touch with Girl Friday and Flashpoint.
Even if you don't have a cookbook written yet, but you're just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's actually the best time to talk about it. I always say to people, if you've got a great idea, don't write the whole manuscript yet, because it might be a waste of time. Where someone can talk to you about it, you might tweak a few things and make it even better before you even dive into the whole thing.
So true. And actually, that's the perfect point to build your author platform. And so many things, this is another podcast thing. Author platform doesn't matter if you're a fiction author, a cookbook author, nutritionist, doesn't matter. Platform is paramount. And what I mean by that is, do you want to read a book by Georgie, this person you're hearing on a podcast, or a book by Angelina Jolie? I'm not going to get offended that you'll probably say Angelina Jolie, because you know who that is. You've seen her for years. So that's because I have no platform. It's obvious that you're not going to pick up a book by me. So to start, like, even if you have the spark of an idea, to reach out to a PR person, to reach out to Flashpoint or Girl Friday or myself, we tell people you got to start building that author platform years in advance, if not a year in advance. Maybe
if you were to think of a word that you could use instead of platform that everybody can understand, what word would you use?
It's just what you're known for.
Yeah, right.
So an example of that is that this was a fiction author, so different, but this man was a real estate mogul. And if you searched him on Google, it would come up that he was this real estate guy, but now he's writing a series of children's books. So I said to him, it's kind of a struggle now, because if I search you, I get that you're a real estate agent. So I'd expect that your book would be about buying real estate, but now you're writing a book about 2 talking pigs. So we've really
we got to start over here.
Yeah. So you can either write under a pen name, like I said, you could write under, you don't have to use your actual name, or you need to start now reviewing other children's book authors, start a website, start contributing articles to parent magazines, like books that teach children about empathy. It's the exact same thing for cookbook authors. Mm-hmm. So if one of your listeners just has a spark of an idea now, first of all, I would follow the people on social media that perhaps you want to be like one day. And kind of a passive way of building a platform is getting into a pool. At least this is how I get into a pool. You stick your big fat toe in there and you say, oh my gosh, it's cold. And then you slowly lower yourself in. So I would start. So putting your toe in the pool is following. Then you're getting a little bit more comfortable. Maybe it's commenting. Love your recipe. Love this. Love that. Then that person might see your name. And then you can start posting on your own and tagging that person. That's the equivalent of diving in the pool. So all that stuff starts now. So for an author, just like, Jason Raffin, that we have his book coming out. I mean, he's just building his platform, even though he is a chef, if not a celebrity chef, I would call.
Yeah.
So you start now. Like, even if you want to be the cupcake queen of, North Dakota. Right. So I would start right now. That's, you start a website, start a platform. Even a tip that probably is just common knowledge to you, like the chocolate chip tip, that's valuable. Here's a little marketing tip that I'll give to your listeners for free that is so basic, like the chocolate chip and the warm cookie. Just start your email signature line that says author of the upcoming book, blah, blah, blah. Start it now. Because then people say, oh, do you have a book coming out?
Yeah.
It's just planting that seed.
So yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I do. I'm working on it right now. Because it's true. Right.
You are working on it right now. And then that opens the door to the conversation. Like, hey, you could join my Kickstarter team or my launch team, which that's another whole other thing that we could, now we're up to 3 podcasts, I think, about how to market your cookbook.
It's going to be our monthly series with Georgie.
Yeah, special guest star. How to market your book, and with the launch team, because people, they feel that behind the scenes, they want to share their opinions, which be careful. If you ask for their opinion, they're going to give it to you.
They will.
So, I mean, I think that author platform building, or what you're known for, starts now before you've even written a book at all.
You said something a little while ago. No one is searching for a book they've never heard of by a person they've never met.
No.
That really summarizes it, like, right there.
Well,
Especially when we work so hard on it. We think, well, isn't everybody just like looking for my book? And the answer is no, they're not.
Well, and we have a joke, myself and my marketing team, is that, on the business card, it may say Georgie, marketing director, but I really say it's killer of dreams, because people do, you do have to say stuff like that, which is a little harsh, but sometimes you need to have that. Like Megan Hansen that wrote that Metabolism Makeover. I was like, I'm trying to eat more healthy, but I can't find a good cereal. I can't find a good cereal, like breakfast morning cereal. And she did a post that just spoke to me. She was like, stop eating cereal. You're not 8 years old. And I was like, I guess I can't have cereal anymore.
It's kind of true.
Like, I want a good
I
cereal.
love cereal, but she's like, no more cereal.
No, you need to have like the overnight oats or the, whatever. And I was like, God dang it. Like, I love cereal. So yeah, I mean, it is a harsh reality, but you will get there. That's another thing that I do quickly follow up and say, like, yeah, no one's searching for a book they've never heard of. But I mean, where do you get ideas? Like, I will hear of something randomly. My neighbor told me, I saw it on social media, and then I'm like, I got to follow up. And that's how it goes. I just think of yourself. But also another tip, in addition to that, start putting that in your signature line, is for cookbook authors. What we really recommend is to do Amazon ads. Amazon ads are great for nonfiction books or cookbooks, because people would type in there, vegan cookbook that only uses crab caught in Seattle.
And then it shows up at the top of the search.
Then it's going to show up at the top of the search. So I don't need to know. Maybe I've never been to the crab pot restaurant. I've been there. So then it'll come up. It's really great for that. For fiction, we don't recommend that people do Amazon ads. You can. There are some benefits to doing that, but we really watch the ad spend, and we definitely don't want our authors spending more on the ad than in book sales. Like, if you're spending $4 to sell a $2 book, I mean, those are silly.
Doesn't make any sense.
But that makes no sense.
Right.
So we watch it really carefully. But on Amazon, ads would be great. And we do that for people, but you can also do it yourself. And that's another thing that we give it to you, the straight information at Girl Friday. It's just like going to a restaurant. You could stay at home and make mac and cheese, or you can go to a restaurant and get mac and cheese. Do you want to make mac and cheese? So you can do your own Amazon ads. It's pretty, if you publish through KDP, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But we do it really, really well, because everything is targeting and getting it to show up on, your comp titles, and comp means competitive titles.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are all different ways. That'll be in the upcoming podcast, how to market your cookbook.
We'll do Amazon ads, Kickstarter, and
Kickstarters, launch
so those are
teams.
some great tips. So thank you so much for adding that, and then dipping your toe, and how you start to slowly build community, talk to other cookbook authors. And once those conversations start and you're actually in the water with other cookbook authors, it's a whole different conversation. Who'd you get your book published by? Did you have an agent? What do you have any advice? I mean, it's kind of like you have your own. Jane Friedman, I've said this on the podcast recently. She calls it literary citizenship, like you're friends with other people who write books, and you all are a community together, making each other stronger. And it's a great way to think about it.
Well, Jane is a great resource. I'm sure you've told your listeners that, because she is so, and she's been a great friend to Girl Friday. She actually has a list of recommended publishers. Girl Friday is on there, but there's other ones as well.
Yeah.
I do think that, again, I'm going on and I apologize. When you're looking for a publisher for your cookbook, it's really important to compare apples to apples, because there's so many different publishing services company, and there's more than one, Girl Friday. And I actually encourage people to look at our competitors. And if you go to Jane's website, they're all listed there. So it's certainly not.
Nice.
Yeah. And so just reach out to them and say, what's your marketing services? What kind of a print run do you do? That sort of thing. Some people, their idea of marketing is they give you a printout, and good luck with that. And maybe for really enterprising people, they can manage that. I know for me, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think also it's nice to partner with somebody, and they might have some different ideas than you have. And together, what you have together can be really robust and fun. And so, yeah, I think all of that is very important. And it goes back to building the relationships with the people who are on your publishing team. And that's really what this type of publishing is about, is a team that's on your side, but how much skin you're going to have to put in the game is different than from traditional publishing. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Georgie, for coming on the show. So much great information, and I can't wait to have you back next time. We got a lot of more things to talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited for this weekly podcast that we're going to start.
Exactly. Very good. Especially, I can think of a couple people. The Kickstarter one is probably one that people are really kind of fascinated and interested in learning about. So again, thanks for all your expertise, for sharing with us about hybrid and custom publishing. And I hope you have a great springtime.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.